All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you had a nice lunch. Thank you for joining us for the 27th Annual NJDOT Research Showcase this year. And thank you for sitting in on our safety breakout session. We're going to go ahead and get started now. A little housekeeping. We'll have, in this session, 3 presentations. At the end, we'll do Q&A. We ask that if you have a question, please come up to the microphone in the center of the room there. That'll make sure our colleagues listening in on the live stream can hear your questions and see you as well. Also, at the end of each session, we do have something new this year. We're doing a little trivia contest, so if you want to stick around for that, I'll read it, once we're done with questions in the first presentation. So let me introduce our first speaker today, Dr. Hannah Eunice, who will be sharing her research on the New Jersey Micromobility Guide. Dr. Hannah Eunice is a senior research specialist at the Voorhees Transportation Center in the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Policy at Rutgers University. Her research interests revolve around sustainable and safe transportation. In her role at Rutgers, Dr. Eunice focuses on crash and medical records research, built environment and geometric roadway design, and active travel research. She has both qualitative and quantitative methodological experiences with focus groups, surveys, interviews, and statistical regression methods. Dr. Eunice has extensive experience interviewing transportation professionals at state DOTs, transit agencies, municipalities, and across the transportation industry. Before coming to Rutgers, she was a research assistant for the Maryland Transportation Institute in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at UMD, focused on transport geography issues. So with that, Hannah, thank you, and take it away.
Thank you. So I'm actually presenting alongside my colleague Sam Rosenthal, and he'll actually get us started, and I'll present some of the data that I have.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm Sam Rosenthal. I'm going to be walking through some of the research related to our New Jersey Micromobility Guide, which was released this past May. The guide summarizes state laws and best practices for safely riding and using micromobility in New Jersey. But by providing tips and answering common questions, we hope that the guide can serve as a resource that promotes the safe and legal use of e-bikes, e-scooters, and other forms of micromobility throughout the state. I just want to say this project was funded through the New Jersey Department of Transportation and was released through the NJDOT Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, which is hosted at the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers. So me and Hannah, those are our faces. This is just a very brief overview of what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about why we think the guide's needed, some of the research that went into it, and basically what's in the guide at a high level. So in our guide, we define micromobility as a range of compact, electric, and human-powered devices designed for short-distance travel. This definition includes a variety of devices such as traditional bicycles, e-bikes, e-scooters, and other low-speed wheeled devices. And in a few moments, we'll go over some of the more specific categories of devices that we included in the guide, but this is just sort of how we frame things in our research that went into it. Why do we think a resource like this is necessary? Well, there are several reasons. First, micromobility is becoming more and more popular. In recent years, options like e-bikes and e-scooters have become increasingly common forms of transportation, both for commuting and leisure. They offer sustainable and efficient alternatives to traditional transportation methods, and using an e-bike or an e-scooter can be an inexpensive and environmentally friendly way of traveling as an alternative to using a car. In addition, many municipalities across New Jersey have noticed the growth in micromobility use and have responded by expanding their active transportation networks, creating or adding a network of on-street bike lanes or off-road trails. And these active transportation networks increase the safety of riding micromobility by providing safe spaces for bicyclists, e-bike users, and e-scooter riders that is separated from motor vehicle traffic. And while these are both positive trends, the laws and best practices concerning micromobility safety are still not common knowledge, even among those who use these devices every day. And we think that drivers and micromobility riders alike can find themselves in risky situations due to this knowledge gap, because riding most micromobility devices does not require a license or training. Riders generally do not receive any sort of formalized education on the laws that govern micromobility. And so as more and more people across the state take up riding e-bikes, e-scooters, and other forms of micromobility, we think that a guide like this can serve as a really useful resource for educating people. We also think the guide is especially pertinent now because of a few laws that have been passed in New Jersey recently. So in 2019, Governor Murphy signed legislation that defines low-speed e-bikes and e-scooters, which solidifies these devices' status under the law. In March of 2022, Governor Murphy signed the Safe Passing Law, which defines new requirements for drivers to slow down and provide a minimum of 4 feet of space while passing vulnerable road users, which includes those who are using micromobility. And then more recently this year, the MVC updated their driver education, testing, and manual to include information on the 4-foot safe passing law. I'm going to hand it over to Hannah for the next few slides.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll talk a little bit about what the data tells us when it comes to safety and injuries from e-scooters, e-bikes, and bicycles. This is a nationwide study. This is how I was able to get the data. The data is at the national level. It doesn't tell you the specific state that the hospital record comes from, so I won't be able to speak specifically about New Jersey, but we know that it's pretty representative here. So some background for this research, there's this perception that e-scooters, e-bikes, etc. are really dangerous. And at the same time, injuries are rare. And there's no concrete evidence that e-scooters are more, that e-scooter injuries are more common or more severe. The bit of data out there suggests that e-bike injuries are more common per mile than e-scooter injuries. And e-scooter injuries are more common around new users and pilot programs. Use of micromobility modes has a documented potential to reduce and decarbonize the transportation sector by reducing car trips, and is a healthier option than motor vehicles and can boost economic opportunities by widening access to transportation. So here are some of the descriptive statistics that came out of this study, and I'm gonna walk you through some of the data here. So again, here I'm looking at all of the injuries among a sample of about 100 hospitals across the United States for bicycles, e-scooters, and e-bikes. In 2021, there were 6,800 such injuries in those 100 hospitals that are anonymized. And then in 2022, pretty similar, 6,900 injuries, but you'll see like how e-bikes jumped. E-scooters to a lesser extent, right? And then bicycles less so. So we do see like this increase in e-bikes, and it's not random. Like they're being purchased a lot more from 2021 to 2022. This trend continues into 2023. By the way, even though the data is not there, I did look at it earlier this year. And then next, I want to highlight that while the injured population is still primarily white and not Hispanic or Latino, we do see that injured e-scooter and e-bike riders are more diverse, particularly for e-scooters. We have a higher proportion of Black and African American and a smaller proportion of males, so higher proportion of women. And then, let's see. And finally, for those who are treated and admitted into the hospital, we see that it's like, which is my indicator of severity here, we see that it's pretty much the same across, it's not statistically significant across the different modes. Actually, cyclists are a little more likely to be treated and admitted into the hospital than e-scooter users. So micro-mobility injuries with motor vehicles. This is another topic of interest. How many of those falls, how many of those injuries did we observe involve a motor vehicle? It was 26% of bicycle injuries, 23% of e-scooter injuries, and 33% of e-bike injuries involved a motor vehicle. That tells you a little bit about the road use as well. E-bike injuries are more likely, e-bike riders are more likely to be in the road and get involved in a motor vehicle crash. So then I also looked at the head injuries. Head injury is the most common injured body part across the board for all of the micromobility users. So among those head injuries, which comprise between 16% for e-scooters all the way to 18% for e-bikes, that's the percentage of injuries that involve like a head injuries. And then among that subset, we're looking at about 70% traumatic brain injuries, which are internal injuries, but that's pretty much another term for it. So ultimately, I looked also with a regression analysis at factors influencing admission to the hospital. I controlled for the injury type and a bunch of other factors and found that older adults are more likely to be admitted into the hospital. I know we've had a lot of focus on children, rightfully so, right? Like they're very vulnerable. But the data does tell us that when it comes to injuries, older folks are more likely to be injured and more likely to be severely injured using micromobility. Males are still more likely to be admitted. Motor vehicle involved, much more likely to be admitted if your injury involves a motor vehicle. Alcohol and substance use also increased that. And ultimately, the micromobility mode was not significant. So you weren't more likely to be severely injured from an e-bike injury than a bicycle injury than an e-scooter injury, once accounting for all of these other factors. Now I'll pass it back to Sam for the rest of what's in the guide.
Thanks, Hannah. And a lot of what Hannah's describing here, this research sort of informed how our approach to developing the guide and our desire to promote safety for micromobility users. So back to the guide, like Hannah mentioned, the remaining slides, I'll just sort of cover at a very high level, like who the guide is for and sort of what's in the guide. This is just to say we had a variety of audiences in mind when we developed the guide, individuals with limited mobility, delivery workers, younger people, older people. Law enforcement officers was definitely a large audience that we envisioned as making use of the guide, policymakers, and really everyone on New Jersey's roads, whether you ride micromobility or not. The definition of micromobility that I provided earlier was very broad, and that makes sense because we want to sort of capture the whole universe of device types. But when it got to actually making the guide itself and making it useful, we identified 11 types of devices that are defined in New Jersey state law. You can see them up here. I won't go into every single one in detail right now. But we were relying on New Jersey statewide regulations to develop this part of the guide. We have things in the guide like distinctions between different classes of e-bikes and how they're regulated under state law. This is an example of a page. So we have, for those 11 device types that I just showed, we have one page for each of them. And this is just sort of an example of one for the low-speed e-scooter. So you can see it has a description of the device, how it's defined under New Jersey state law, device characteristics, helmet, licensure, and registration requirements, where you're allowed to ride the device, and a detailed list of when it is not allowed on different transit agencies in New Jersey. This is sort of the general categories for safety best practices. So the first part of the guide is defining different types of devices, and then the second part is safety best practices that are generally applicable to most types of micromobility. So these are the categories. I'll go through these in a tiny bit more detail. General safety tips. This is fairly straightforward, following the law, riding predictably, being visible, things like that. This is just to say that our approach to developing the guide, this is sort of the framework that we were working under, this hierarchy of vulnerability. So understanding that responsibility for road safety is shared among all users, but certain road users are inherently more vulnerable than others. So if you're a pedestrian or riding a bicycle or an e-scooter, you're going to be more vulnerable than somebody who's driving a car or a truck or an SUV. So responsibility is shared, but we have to understand. Yes, okay, I'll pick it up. I see we're running out of time, so I'm going to cover this very, very briefly. Some existing laws that are covered in the guide. These are more resources on the safe passing law that we have. We have a section about speed limiters and why you should not remove speed limiters from devices. And again, a lot of this was informed by questions that we received at the New Jersey DOT Bicycle Pedestrian Resource Center help desk. So people have been emailing us with questions over the last several years about related to micromobility. And so that's sort of another way that we came up with some of these topic areas that we talk about in the guide. So we have a section about preventing lithium-ion battery fires, what the causes are, how to prevent them. This is a little bit complicated, so I won't go into detail here, but I'll just say that there are more, if you check out the guide, there are more resources, there's more information about all of this in the guide. We have a section about how to safely secure and park different types of devices, how to take your devices on transit, and then just some key takeaways. How much time do I have? -1 minute. Okay. Some of just general key takeaways. We think that there are many benefits to having a comprehensive guide like this. We didn't see an example like this from anywhere else, any other state in the United States. This seems like it's sort of the first statewide comprehensive micromobility guide. So hopefully this can be a template for other states to use as well. There is a lot of nuance in state laws, so we identified some gaps in the law that we address in the guide. And let's see what else is important. Yeah, that's sort of it. I know this is, here's where you can find the guide. So you can read more about it, since I don't have time to go into that much detail right now. There's a QR code, there's the link on the website. I'll leave that up for a few moments. And we have other resources on our website as well related to micromobility. Yeah.
Quickly talk about another research project that I'm working on, funded by the New Jersey State Policy Lab. I'm looking for responses to this survey about your thoughts on e-bikes. Those are your personal thoughts, not like your company's thoughts. It's also up on LinkedIn if you search my name. And it's right here also. So we're looking at understanding the impacts of e-bikes, especially safety and all of that, and what the opinions are. So this is more of an opinion survey right here. And I do want to say, I wanted to reemphasize that the micromobility guide for New Jersey is the first statewide New Jersey guide. We've presented it at the National Conference for the Association for Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals, right, APBP. There was a lot of interest in replicating this across the United States, and yeah, so it's pretty cool to be first at something and doing something right. So yeah, and then contact info. Thank you.
I really don't need a microphone. I'm pretty loud. I was just wondering, what is the speed?
So there's a live stream.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. My question is, what is the maximum speed of it? I heard from my grandson they go as high as 60 miles per hour.
Those are not street legal if they
Whoa.
go that high.
I'm like, yeah.
No, the maximum speed is 20 miles per hour.
Yeah, it depends on the class of
Right.
e-bike. So
Oh.
class 3 e-bike, the maximum speed is 28 miles per hour. So anything that goes faster than that is probably not street legal.
Okay, thank you.
You know, your best bet is to go to a brick and mortar store, trusted a bike shop where you can buy something that is street legal.
Is there a place where you could find good micromobility maps, like a bicycle map, scooter map, maps for people who want to use bikes and scooters?
No, I can't think of anything that's like statewide, like a one-stop shop. I know we've done several blogs about where you can ride on the Jersey Shore. That's like a summer type of blog where, but it's not giving you much more about the rest of the state. We'll look into it for sure. Yeah, and I think we'll just get back to you by email or something. 'Cause that's a really good question. Thank you.
Hi, you guys said that head injuries are the most common type of injury for using micromobility devices. Could that be due to the severity of the injury and how they're more likely to be reported?
Okay, so could that be due to so those are like hospital injuries, right? Right. If you get a scrape, you might not go to the hospital at all. So those are people who presented to the hospital, to the emergency room, and about 15 to 18% had a head injury. So yes, right. If you look at like all e-bike or all micromobility injuries, even the ones that don't make it to the hospital, for sure it's going to be like scrapes and cuts, right? Was that your question or?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Hi, I was wondering if there are any similar resources for like pedestrians and wheelchair users, because I don't know. I guess you're not really defining that as micromobility for the purpose of this guide, if I understand correctly, but that definitely is relevant.
Yeah, well, I don't know of any, but for the purposes of this guide, and I believe under New Jersey state law, someone using a wheelchair would be considered a pedestrian. So while they would be considered a vulnerable road user, they wouldn't that wouldn't classify as a micromobility device under state law. But to answer your question, I don't know of any resources off the top of my head.
So that's our first presentation. If you'd like to explore the other sessions, feel free to. They'll be starting up at 1:30. We'll be staying here focused on safety with our next presentation in just a few minutes. Let me check the time real quick. So before we introduce our next speaker, I did mention something new this year. We'll be doing a small trivia game, and there's a prize as well from NJDOT. So I'll read it off. If you'd like to participate, I ask you just raise your hand. Essentially, I'm going to read a general science engineering question from this card I have in my hand. Raise your hand. First to raise their hand, I'll call on you. Do my best to get the first one. And if you get the right answer, I'll give you this card, and you are eligible to receive a professional engineering exam study guide from downstairs at the end of the day. All right, so give me 1 second. I will read off the question. The question is, what is aerobic decomposition? I know it's not related, but general, I think it's probably more bio question, right? Anyone want to take a stab at it? Not seeing anyone. Oh, sure, go ahead. Yes, that's correct. So the formal definition is the breakdown of waste through exposure to oxygen, essentially, and also the principal means of self-purification in water systems. So I'm going to give it to you. Good job. You were close. I'm going to give it to you here. So if you can grab this, I'm connected to the wire here, and then downstairs, room 116, they'll have the exam book if you'd like to receive it. So okay, so conflicting terms, I guess, right? Yeah, we were close. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker and ask Laurencia to come up now as well, if she'd like to get set up. Our next speaker is Laurencia Akufo, who will be sharing some of her work related to bridge assessment and funding allocation. Laurencia Akufo is a civil engineer and researcher whose work bridges the fields of structural engineering, data science, and infrastructure resilience. As a graduate fellow at Rowan University's Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, her research focuses on structural health monitoring and remaining capacity estimation of bridges and pre-stressed concrete girders using advanced modeling tools such as Abacus and machine learning. Laurencia's innovative studies integrate LiDAR data, point cloud analysis, and socioeconomic modeling to understand infrastructure performance and deterioration across New Jersey's bridges. Her multidisciplinary approach, which combines statistical modeling, structural simulation, and data-driven insights, positions her at the forefront of next-generation transportation infrastructure research. So with that, Laurencia, you're all set? Thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to give a presentation on time to failure and socioeconomic analysis for bridge assessment. And I'm from Rowan University, Glasgow, New Jersey. So the main purpose of this research was to examine how both structural and socioeconomic factors impact bridge conditions and understanding how structural and community variables affect bridge longevity, and also explore how funding decisions are influenced by more than just the structural integrity of a bridge. So for this study, we took, this is a 2024 study, so we took all the bridges in New Jersey up to that point, and it's a two-part study. So we did the structural analysis part and then the socioeconomic analysis. And then for the structural analysis, we used Kaplan-Meier and Cox-PH. And then for the socioeconomic analysis, we used K-means clustering, multiple linear regression, and then random forest. So as I mentioned, the factors that we used for the structural analysis was we used the live loads, bridge features from the NBI site, and then we used environmental loads and conditions. And then for the second part, which is the socioeconomic analysis, we use the average annual daily traffic, population, business density, and then median income. So this is the methodology that we use for analysis. So we first, as I said, collected our data from the NBI data sites, and then we also got some from the Census Bureau. And we used that, we cleaned our data and transformed it to replace all our missing values. And then we started with our analysis. So the first analysis that we did was Kaplan-Meier, and it was a time to failure analysis. And then after that, we did the Cox proportional hazard analysis to assess the risk factor relationship between the covariates, and we also went on for the second part, we started with K-means clustering for the socioeconomic groupings, and then we did the multiple linear regression and random forest to check the influence of socioeconomic variables on bridge conditions. So the Kaplan-Meier is a non-parametric survival analysis method, and it estimates the probability of survival of the bridges over a certain period of time, and also accounts for censored data. Censored data is during our study, we realized that some of the bridges did not go into failure mode at the end of our study. So those bridges were censored. And then also some bridges are taken out because of maybe some catastrophic reasons, like maybe there's a collapse or something that's out of the ordinary, or it could be that there wasn't any more data, like as the time went on, there wasn't any more data for those particular bridges. So this model senses out those bridges that experience those things. And then we then used this model, the Kaplan-Meier model, to compare survival across bridge material categories under the different load scenarios. So this is a Kaplan-Meier graph, and then on the right is the results from the graph. So you realize that the first column is the number of bridges at risk at the beginning of the study. So that's year 0. So when it gets to 50 years, we see that the number of bridges dropped drastically, and then it keeps on dropping till it gets to the 150-year mark. At 200, we have 0. So you also realize that when you look at masonry, you see that it doesn't really drop as much. It starts at 96. After 50 years, it's still at 96, and then it drops to 94. So it doesn't necessarily mean that masonry is like the strongest material out there. But then we in New Jersey, there's like a special fund. Most of the, not all, but then most of the masonry bridges fall under like historic bridges. So there's like special funding on special attention for those like bridges. So you realize that they don't deteriorate as much as compared to the other bridges. That's why when you look at the masonry, the yellow, when you look at the curve, you realize that the yellow line, some of the lines are very steep, they drop very fast, even before the 50-year mark. But then the yellow one at the top, which is the masonry bridge, continues and then drops after like 100 years or something. So that's what's happening there. So this is a Kaplan-Meier. It looks at how the bridges deteriorate in time. So after we did this analysis, we did the Cox proportional analysis. That's still the first part of the analysis, the structural part. So with the Cox proportional analysis, it's a semi-parametric survival model, and it estimates the hazard ratios for covariates. The covariates are the different bridge features that we got from the NBI site. So for the interpretation, that when the hazard ratio is greater than 1, it means that that particular bridge feature or that particular feature contributes more to the failure risk. And then the model itself adjusts the various covariates for adjusts it as it runs the model. So you realize, so you might be asking why, like, we will do the Cox pH after we've done like another parametric analysis. So we did it because Kaplan-Meier is more like, we used it in this study for more like an exploratory analysis to see how like the bridges behave over time. But then the Cox pH is gonna quantify how much the effect or the contribution of each of the factors to the failure risk. So it's more like maybe you have a map or something, and then the Kaplan-Meier is gonna show you where the location of the mountains on the map. But then when you do the Cox pH, that's more like giving you the slope and then the elevation, mathematical elevation of the map. So you get more like insights, and it describes like what's really happening around the mountain on the map. So this is the results of the Cox pH analysis. You realize that the pre-stressed concrete and the pre-stressed concrete continuous. So I mentioned earlier that when the hazard ratio is greater than 1, it means that there's an increased failure risk. So when you look at the covariates here, you realize that pre-stressed concrete continuous contributes more to the failure risk of the bridge as compared to maybe the number of freeze-thaw cycles or something. So it's, yeah, basically the Cox pH is quantifying just how much these different factors affecting the bridge. So when we did all this structural analysis, we wanted to see how it's shown like in the real world. So we don't have any specific, like let's say we don't have County A having only steel bridges or County B having only concrete bridges, right? We have like them, we have them evenly dispersed like in all the counties. So then ideally you would expect that like if they are generally the same type of bridges in all the counties, then when you look at the distribution of good and fair bridges in the counties, then it's not supposed to be so different, because like ideally we have like almost every type of bridge in every county. But then when you look at the distribution of fair and good bridges in the different counties, you realize that, let's say a county like Mercer County has 46% of good bridges and then 54% of fair bridges. But then when you look at maybe Warren County, it has just 22% of good bridges and 78% of fair bridges. So there's a lot of differences in the number of good and fair bridges across the different counties. So we wanted to investigate to know why we have almost every type of bridge in all the counties, but then they are so different when it comes to the number of good and fair bridges. So we first did a K-means clustering to find the distribution. So K-means clustering is an unsupervised machine learning, and it groups bridges with similar characteristics under one group. So it identifies the patterns without predefined categories, and then also helps target interventions for similar bridge clusters. So we looked at, the reason why we grouped it according to the median income is because from our literature review, we realized that most of the policies and other works talk about costing and funding with regards to bridge deterioration and rehabilitation and all this. There's a lot of focus on funding, and most of the federal funding that comes in is supplemented by tolls and user tax and gas taxes and all that. So I wanted to see how the different income classes would look like with respect to the number of good and fair bridges. So when you look at the 75,000, you realize that there are about 29% of the bridges are in fair condition, and then the good bridges are 26%. But when you increase the income, you see that 36% is good, 33% is in a fair condition. When you increase it further, you realize that it's 38% and 38%. But then if it was just the income or money that was affecting how well the bridges are performing in the different areas, then it doesn't really make sense why we are increasing the amount of money, and then even if the number of good bridges are more than the fair bridges, like the fair bridges are also increasing. So it means that there are other factors that are affecting, it's not just about the money, there are other factors that are affecting whatever is happening in the counties or in the different areas. So then we wanted to investigate further. So we added more socioeconomic factors. And there are so many socioeconomic factors. There's even access to healthcare, birth rate, education level, etc. But then these are the prominent ones that are related to our study. And then, so we use random forest to do an importance ranking to find the topmost ones, the ones that are necessary for our research. And random forest is basically an ensemble machine learning method that builds multiple decision trees and aggregates the results. So it also provides the importance ranking, as I mentioned, and then it captures non-linear relationship between predictors and bridge conditions. So these are the factors that came up at the top. So we decided to use this for our socioeconomic analysis. So we did the multiple linear regression for our socioeconomic analysis. We wanted to see the contribution of the different socioeconomic factors to deterioration rate. So multiple linear regression predicts bridge condition rating using multiple predictors. It provides coefficients to measure contribution of each factor, and also controls for multicollinearity between socioeconomic variables, and supports policy recommendations with quantitative evidence. So when you look at the table, the results here, you realize that, let's say, the results mean that, like, for the coefficient side, the results mean that whenever there's a 1 unit increase in business activity in a particular county, it contributes 0.32 to the deterioration. For the negative ones, when there's an increase, like there's a 1 unit increase in population, it contributes, it decreases the deterioration by this amount. So some of the factors too were combined to see how, because the factors do not act alone. You can't say that you're isolating just a business activity and all other factors are zero or constant. Like, they continually interact with each other. So I also looked at how the factors interact, like, with each other in twos, in threes, and all that, to see how a combination of all the scenarios and their contribution to the deterioration rate of bridges. So basically, this analysis or this framework goes on to show that there are so many layers when it comes to funding allocation and rehabilitation works. You can't just look at the structural aspect, because these socioeconomic factors, for instance, they keep changing. They are not really constant. There could be a very high business activity at one point in a certain locality, and then in the next decade, it could drastically fall, population could be changing. So all these things are really important when we are looking at the funding locations and how we go about, like, our rehabilitation works in New Jersey. So yes, so by combining the reliability analysis, which is the first part, and understanding the socioeconomic impacts, the study provides a comprehensive framework for optimizing bridge infrastructure management. So this is more like a holistic approach that can enable policymakers and transportation planners to make more informed decisions that address both the structural integrity and social equity considerations. Thank you.
There were two factors that I didn't see in there that, from experience working with DOT, I wanted to know if there was a reason that they were not considered. One being the political aspect, meaning whatever party is in power at any given time tends to divert more money to their districts versus the others. The other aspect is who has authority over the bridge in question, which is the more important one, because if a bridge is a local bridge or a county bridge, there's often a lot of infighting over who's responsible, and there's more hoops for the entity to go through to get funding. Whereas if it's a county that has a lot of state-controlled bridges, the state has a lot less hoops to go through, and that will also affect where and when bridges get funding. Is there any particular reason why those two factors were not considered?
So for the political reasons, I didn't really get, like, any data on that, like any reliable data on that. And then for the other one, no, I didn't add that because I was checking for this from, like, NJDOT sites and all that, and then the FHWA sites, and there were a lot of, like, you get some of the data and then there's inconsistency, so much gap, like maybe 8 years, there's nothing being recorded, and then it goes 2 years, so it didn't seem so reliable. That's why I didn't incorporate it, so that it doesn't skew my results.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit more about the second to last slide and the results in the table, like which socioeconomic factors had the most impact on,
This one. Yeah, so for this slide, we're looking at the different socioeconomic factors and how they contribute to deterioration. So as I said earlier, so we looked at just like one factor each, considering, like, every other factor is 0 or constant. And then that's what's happening. So let's say there's a 1 unit increase in business, like there's an extra business or something, then the contribution of that business activity to deterioration of the bridge would be 0.32. Like that's the quantity, the weight of like the contribution. Yes. And then for the model combined in twos too. So let's say when you look at median business activity and median household income, an increase in the combination of these two would decrease deterioration by 0.36 amount. So that's like the weight of the contribution of these socioeconomic factors to the deterioration.
I have a question because you are conducting the socioeconomic data analysis. Can you provide me with some of the variables you were using in the analysis? Also, the socioeconomic variables also, if you remember
So,
also.
like the business activities and all that. Is that what you're asking?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so those are the variables in my socioeconomic like model analysis. So I use the amount of business activity in all the counties, the median household income in all the counties, the population of the different counties, the average annual daily traffic of all the different counties. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm just wondering, has your research been published yet? And if so, where can we access a paper for it?
No, it's still under review with ASC, I think transportation system. So I'm waiting for the feedback. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, great project.
So that concludes our second presentation. At this point, people will be transitioning in each of the sessions. So if you'd like to check out the infrastructure or workforce groups as well, please feel free to. We'll also be continuing with more safety presentations in just a few minutes here. So while we wait to get started, we're just going to give it a few minutes as people are walking from different sessions. We do have this trivia contest from NJDOT. If you were here before I mentioned it, I'll read off this trivia question on the card. If you'd like to answer, please just raise your hand. First person to raise your hand and answer correctly, you are eligible to receive a professional engineering exam guidebook. If that's something you're interested in, I'll read off the question. If not, no pressure. The question is, how do you convert a temperature in degrees Celsius to degrees Kelvin? Anyone want to take a swing at it? Close. Well, it says here add 273, so I think you're thinking we're on the right lines. I'm going to hand it to you. Congratulations. If you would like to receive the book, at the end of the event downstairs in room 116, they'll be handing them out at that point. So, congrats. Thank you for joining us for our third safety presentation today. I'm going to introduce our speaker. We have Lindsay Lee, who will be sharing her research related to or materials research focused on energy absorption for transportation infrastructure protection. Lindsay is a PhD student in the Department of Civil, Environmental, and Ocean Engineering at Stevens Institute of Technology, supervised by Professor Yi Bao. Her research focuses on the design and optimization of mechanical and auxetic metamaterials for vibration mitigation, energy absorption, and structural protection in civil and transportation engineering. Her recent work develops multi-stage auxetic lattices that integrate rotating, reentrant, and chiral mechanisms to achieve enhanced stability and load-bearing performance. So with that, Lindsay, thank you, and take it away.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linzhi Li. I'm a first-year PhD student from Stevens Institute of Technology, and I'm from Civil Engineering Department. My advisor is Professor Yibao. Today, I'm going to give you my speech about a multi-stage oxidic metamaterial with enhanced stability and energy absorption for transportation protection. Okay. First, I'm going to give you some background information. Highway transportation protection devices are designed to prevent severe highway accidents by absorbing impact energy. So typical protection devices including corrugated beam guardrails, highway impact attenuators, and aside from those structural large protection devices, honeycomb absorbing materials have been a very promising direction for this application. Basically, the honeycomb cores can be installed inside of the barriers, so to form like a sandwich-like layers to become the shock or energy absorbers. So among the honeycomb materials, oxidic metamaterial is one of the special types of honeycomb material because it have a very special property called the negative Poisson's ratio. So what is negative Poisson's ratio? We can tell from the left-hand picture and the right-hand picture. Left is the normal honeycomb, and right is the reentrant honeycomb, which belongs to one of the oxidic metamaterial. So when you stretch or compress them, the material will expand laterally instead of contracting like the normal honeycomb, and this is the negative Poisson's ratio. So because of this unique property, it has some advantages such as excellent indentation resistance and better energy absorbing performance. So that is why we want to use them for the protection devices. So generally, the stress-strain relation under compression of absorbing materials have three stages. First is the elastic stage, where the deformation is elastic and reversible, and second is the Plato's stage, where the deformation will become irreversible and plastic. And it is this stage that contributes significantly to the energy absorption performance of the AMS. And after the holes of the structure disappear, the force will rise sharply, and that means that the structure has entered into the third stage, which is densification stage. So if we want to improve the energy absorption performance of the material, we have two directions. First is to extend the plateau stress and stage, and second is to increase the plateau stress. So for the AMS, typical mechanism of geometrical configurations, including three types. First is the reentrant mechanism. It's like the first picture, and the negative Poisson's ratio behavior is realized by the rotation of inclined struts of the structure. And second is called the gyro mechanism. When you compress it or stretch it, the rotation of the center rigid discs will cause the attached ligaments on the rings to wind or unwind, and this will cause the negative Poisson's ratio behavior as well. And third configuration is called the rotating rigid mechanism. You can see that all those rigid polygons will be linked by the joints. So when you compress it or stretch it, the joints will rotate, and this will cause the negative Poisson's ratio behavior. So for those three typical mechanisms, they sometimes will have some limitations, such as the low load capacity, because they all rely on the soft bending or the rotation of some fragile parts. And the second is typical AMS will have a limited effective strain range, which means that they can only maintain the negative Poisson's ratio within a relatively small range, which is below 0.3. And I think this will have a very good, there's still the optimization space for the structure. And second is the unstable deformation, especially under the large strain range. You can see from the bottom of the picture that the materials at the bulge effect cannot participate effectively during the loading process, and that is what we want to solve. And right now, there are two directions to improve the AIMS performance. First is the structural design, which is also called the geometry design. You can optimize the new configuration, or you can use gradient parameters. And the most direct way is to add some internal supports for the structure to, increase the load-bearing capacity. And second is called the hybrid mechanism. It combines the deformation mechanism that we have introduced together, such as the researchers that I have listed. They combine the reentrant and rotating mechanism together so that they will have multi-stage deformation, which can enable the extension of the plateau stress. And another direction is to fill some soft materials inside of the lattice so that the load-bearing capacity can also be increased. So here are our research objectives. We want to design hybrid deformation sequences to achieve an extended strain range. And another part is that we want to add some, you can see the internal supports and the side T-shaped ribs so as to enhance the strength and stability. And all those objectives will contribute to the improvement of load-bearing capacity and energy absorption performance for the material. So here is our geometrical design. We follow the unit cell lattice structure design flow. And first, we are design based on the basic reentrant unit, and we add the internal support. There are two configurations. The top one is called the Chira configuration, and the below one is the X-shaped. And then we want to further stabilize the deformation of the structure, so we further add the enhancing ribs. So these are the four kinds of unit cell that we are going to analyze further. And together they force the four kinds of lattice. The first one is called XRR, which means X-shaped rotating reentrant, and similarly, the rest of them called XERR, CRR. Sorry, I made a mistake about the third one. It's called the CRR, and the last one is called CERR, which means Chira-shaped enhancing rotating reentrant model. So basically, we are going to use Abacus to conduct the quasi-static compression simulation for the four models, and we're going to analyze them in terms of three aspects. First is the Poisson's ratio, and second is we're going to compare their plateau stress, and most importantly, we're going to use the specified energy absorption metric to represent the energy absorption performance of the model. And our results have been validated by the experimental compression test as well. So here is our first result. It's called the damage process. You can see this process under the compression. The first deformation stage called the rotation. The deformation is mainly because the joints between the unit cells will rotate, and so that this is the first stage until the top and bottom of the unit cell fully contact with each other, and the rotation will stop. And then they will enter into the second stage called the reentrant bending. It's because the unit cell of this reentrant structure begin to play their role. The ligaments of the unit cell and the ribs will bending. So this is the second stage, and after the voids will close, the base material will dominate the process, and this means that it will enter into the densification stage. And you can see that the result of 4 models at the rotation stage, which is the second picture, they all have the similar configuration because the geometrical design that we designed, including internal supports and ribs, they barely have little effect on the early rotation stage. However, you can see from the last picture, it is only the CERR model can achieve a very stable and symmetric deformation configuration, while others will all experience some kinds of unstable deformation. And we also did some parameter analysis and proving that increasing thickness will enhance the overall stress. And second is the stress-strain result. We're going to divide this stress-strain relation into 4 parts according to its deformation stage. So first is the elastic stage, and second is called second. We can see it is the first plateau stage. It is caused because of the rotation mechanism that we have introduced before. And then after the rotation stopped, it will enter the third stage, which is caused by the bending of the units, the ligaments of unit cell, and that they will enter into the second plateau stage. And you can see that at the later third stage, it will have a significantly enhancement of stiffness, and this is because of the stable deformation configuration. Because we can see from the comparison of those 4 models, the curves will nearly overlap at the rotation stage, which is the first plateau, because we have introduced that our geometrical design have little effect on the first stage. But you can see at the second stage, the introducing of the ribs and the internal supports will contribute to the increase of the second plateau stress. And you can see that only this blue line have a very significant stiffness enhancement at the later strain range. It is because only CERR achieved the stable deformation. And third result is about the Poisson's ratio, and we can just directly see the comparison of these 4 models. You can see that overall NPR trends remain consistent, and but CER and XER, which are the black and red lines, they will have a sharper increasement in the later strain range because they have this kind of side ribs enhancement, and the self-contact between the structures and this kind of side ribs will contribute negatively of the increasement of the NPR effect. But overall, they can all maintain the NPR effect in a very large strain, which is 0.6. And most importantly, we compared the specified energy absorption metric of 4 models, and you can see that CERR has the highest SEA among all designs, proving that the stable deformation contributes significantly to the improvement of energy absorption performance. And basically, compared with XR model, it has 100% increasement, and XER had 80% increasement. And under similar configuration, we can see that CER and CR all have slightly increasement compared with XERR and XRR respectively. And this proves that the the chiral configuration of the internal support also contributes contribute positively to the increasement of energy absorption performance. And here is the summary of our the result that I have mentioned, and we can see from the result that CER, although CER has a slightly decreasement of the first plateau stress, it has a significantly increasement of second plateau stress, and most importantly, it has the best energy absorption performance. So in conclusion, we introduced the three mechanisms of AMS together to maintain to enable the structure to maintain a stable NPR effect over 0 to 0.6 strain range, and we make them have enhanced mechanical performance, such as more stable deformation with higher load-bearing capacity, and we have proved that the CER achieves 25.7% increasement of second plateau stress compared with the existing study, which is XRR. And also, most importantly, it has the superior energy absorption performance. It achieves 100% increasement of SEA compared with XRR. So this is just the first step research, and next we're going to fabricate the proposed model through the 3D printing, and we're going to conduct a systematic static compression test to validate the performance. And I want to mention that for the practical engineering application, most absorbers are used for the impact or shock force. So the next step, we're going to take some research about the performance of the models under the impact load. And we're also going to try to further analysis the parameter to achieve the programmable and balanced optimization, and to conduct some reliability analysis to verify consistent and stable deformation under various conditions. And that's all. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
In one of the first slides, the graphic showed hinted that there was less deformation in your model versus the conventional materials. One of the first two.
You mean this?
Nope, further back. So when you were showing the lateral movement of under load, it was,
you mean this? One. Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to know if that's accurate, that there's less deformation under load, because the reason for me asking is in impacts, the majority of the injuries comes from the quickness of the deceleration, and the quicker the subject decelerates, the higher the injuries. So if the material deforms less under the same load, has there been any study to determine whether or not that will cause a higher rate of injury?
I haven't thought about the specific application of this kind of material under the transportation injury survey about injuries, but actually the reentrant, this kind of negative Poisson's ratio, when you when you compress it, you can see that they will shrink together instead of expand. And this kind of structure, usually they will have a larger, they will have better energy absorption performance, and I think they will have a low peak force compared with the normal honeycomb, which means that when you hit this material, it will have less force against the protectors. And this, I think this will contributes to the less injury for the protectors. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And we're going to have one more safety presentation starting up in just a few minutes. If you want to stick around for that, thank you. At this point, people are also breaking in the other sessions, infrastructure and workforce development. You're free to join them if you'd like, or stay here with us. We'll be starting in just a minute or two. Speaker for our safety session today, thank you again for joining us. We have Mr. Tafajal Hussain, who is a PhD student in transportation engineering at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. His research focuses on traffic flow modeling, intelligent transportation systems, and AI-driven safe traffic safety analysis. His recent work includes developing real-time incident detection models using crowdsourced Waze data and designing a data-driven framework for optimal safety service patrol routes, route identification based on historical crash data. He also explores crash severity prediction using large language models to enhance roadway safety analytics. At NJIT, he serves as a teaching assistant and has contributed to the NJDOT funded research at the Intelligent Transportation Systems Research Center. He is a recipient of the 2025 ITS NJ Outstanding Graduate Student Award and the Best Poster Award at the 2024 ITS NJ Annual Meeting, recognizing his academic excellence and contributions to advancing intelligent and data-driven transportation systems. Thank you.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is MD Tafajjal Hossain. I'm a PhD student at NJIT. Today I'm presenting our research on hash breaking as a surrogate measure for crash risk, a segment level analysis with a connected vehicle telematics. So in my presentation, I will cover the background and objective of our research, and then I will present the methodology and data description, followed by analysis and findings. And finally, I will mention conclusion and recommendations. Traffic safety has always been at the central focus in transportation research. Despite decades of research, safety is still a critical challenge in traffic engineering. Most of the traditional research actually depends on historical crash data, and this is actually a reactive approach. They use historical crash data to identify factors contributing in crash, and then to identify the hotspot or crash prone area. But that is reactive approach. So it limits their effectiveness for proactive safety management. In recent years, surrogate measures has drawn increasing attention for safety analysis. Among various surrogate measures, acceleration and deceleration pattern actually shown a strong indicator for crash outcomes. Therefore, our research question was that so when the deceleration actually goes beyond a certain limit, that time those deceleration is called hash breaking. So our research question was that can hash breaking act as a surrogate measure for crash risk analysis in New Jersey? And our goal was to identify the relationship between hash breaking and crash frequency. So to conduct our research, we actually use three kinds of data. New Jersey's interstate highway GIS data, and we split that into 1 mile segment, and we use hash breaking data, and those hash breaking data are obtained from driveways telematics records. And driveway is actually a connected vehicle platform which is widely used used by commercial trucks on interstate highway, and they actually capture speed, acceleration, deceleration, braking events, and geolocations. And then we use also crash data, and we use police reported crash data, which is known as NJTR1. So then we use a GIS tool called GIS buffering to mask the crash and hashbreaking events to each segment of the NJ interstate highways. Finally, we then we did some statistical modeling to identify if there is any relationship between hashbreaking and crash frequency. At first, we actually, to understand the spatial distribution of hashbreaking, we mapped the hashbreaking events, and we can observe from the map that most of the hashbreaking events are occurred on interstate highways, such as I-95, I-80, I-78, I-280, and this kind of, although there are a few hashbreaking events on Garden State Parkway, but they are very less compared to interstate highways. So our focus was on interstate highways only. And if we look at the crash events within the same study period, we see that the similar pattern. Most of the crash actually happens on the same locations. And if we look at the top 5 corridors across New Jersey, we find that I-95, I-80, and I-287 are the most are the corridors that have most crash occurrence in New Jersey. Then we goes to a segment level analysis. So this animation actually shows the top 10 segments with highest number of events in terms of hashbreaking and crash events. And we also, if we observe that there are similarities. So the segments are near Newark, Jersey City, and George Washington Bridge. So this corridor actually has complex interchanges and many diverging and merging traffic. It also experienced a lot of traffic. So this condition actually create a hashbreaking events, and also it contributes in most crashes, segments with most crashes. If we look at the temporal variation of those events, then we see there is some discrepancies. So crash actually happens from mid-summer to early fall. It's maybe because of summer travelers, but on the other hand, hashbreaking actually dramatically increased during November and December. It's probably for traffics during holidays, in the occasion of Thanksgiving and Christmas. Then we look at the segments that have both hashbreaking events and crash locations. So those segments are identified on I-95 near Newark to George Washington Bridge segments. There are also segments near Camden to Central Jersey, and others are I-80, I-287, and so on. So we we calculate a Pearson correlation to identify if there is a correlation exist between hashbreaking and crash frequency, and we found that there is a positive relation between hashbreaking and crash frequency. So hashbreaking could have influence on crash occurrence. So in our crash modeling, statistical modeling, we use zero-inflated negative binomial model. We found this model as the best fitting model. Actually, crash has, there are many segments with zero crashes, so we use zero-inflated negative binomial, and we also found that crash occurrence has higher variance than mean. So that's why we use negative binomial model. And we found that there is a positive relationship. That's mean hashbreaking has an impact on crash occurrence. And we found that cashbreaking event actually contributes to 1% increase in crash frequency. Maybe for single events it has insignificant, but for cumulative hashbreaking events, this actually could be a significant impact on crash frequency. For example, an increase of 10 hash breaking events correspond to a 10% increase in cache frequency, which is significant. So we draw a conclusion that yes, hash breaking can be used as a surrogate measure for cache analysis, and it has positive impact on cache frequency. And maybe single events has insignificant impact on cache frequency, but cumulative effect is significant. So our research actually underscored the value of crowdsourced telemetrics data for a proactive safety management tool. Then we made some recommendation that agencies should incorporate hash breaking events in their safety dashboards to identify potential cache-prone area in advance to prevent crashes. And segments with higher hash breaking activity should be prioritized for countermeasures. And as we also observed that hash breaking has some seasonal and weather impact, so we should monitor. So seasonal monitoring should be intensified, and by combining hash breaking, we can prevent crashes. Thank you for your attention.
What does HB mean?
Sorry? HB is hash breaking.
I missed it at the beginning of the presentation, but what measures, or how did you measure hash breaking in general?
We measure hash breaking if the deceleration goes beyond a certain limit, that is 6 feet per second squared.
Okay, and was it measured via like cameras, or how was?
It measures with connected vehicle telematics like GPS.
Okay, thank you.
When I was driving on 95, my Waze would tell me in the next half a mile, there are many, crashes reported. Do you think that information like that coming from our GPSs can help us avoid accidents?
Yeah, I have actually another research on potential use of OS data for safety analysis. And we found that yes, those data can be important for safety analysis.
So that will actually conclude our safety breakout session today. Our last presentation on the program had to be scratched, unfortunately, but I encourage you to check out the infrastructure and workforce development sessions that are likely still ongoing, and also the poster session downstairs if you'd like. Thank you again for joining us for the safety breakout. All these presentations will be posted online and shared as well, so you'll be able to access them. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed the NJDOT Research Showcase. Thanks.